My first reaction was, well, obviously King Charles's diary is too busy because people don't realize that they literally, and I think I might have said this to you before, have appointments every 20 minutes. And it's hard for a sort of rogue appointment to come in. And I think all the royal family experienced this with the late Queen. You know, if they wanted to chat to her, you know, for more than 5 minutes, it was hard to get an appointment with her. Also, she'd put them off. Now, but then I thought, well, Charles is really should be making time to see Harry because it doesn't look good for him. It makes him look like an uncaring father. There's his son who lives 5,000 miles away. He's coming back to celebrate the success of his Invictus Games, which, you know, probably is one of the successes we all remember. And maybe it would be nice if Charles had made time to see him. But then maybe they've spoken on the telephone at length. I just cannot believe that Harry would come over here and at least not speak to his father, even if he didn't see him.
Father and son, he could go and have breakfast with his father. He could go and have dinner with his father. He could do things that his father does. We all have to do. We all have to eat and drink, and and he could have done that. There's always be a way if you wanted it. You know, I know that because, you know, I have a busy diary, and yet I know if I had to see my children, I would make sure I did that. So I don't feel that's. I think Harry has to. I think realize that you can't do what he did and just breeze in and out when it suits you. You can't just do, say, damaging things about your brother, stupid things like we had a fight. You know, I mean, who cares? I mean, every brother's had a fight with my brother. You know, it just happens. It's just normal. And make that a big story and a big event, or not remember where he was when the Queen Mother died, but it does remember great detail about how he dislikes his brother, and now Queen Camilla tips her press off. I mean, how ridiculous is that? And yet, you know, he can't just walk in and out when it suits him, and not now. I think, well, maybe, you know, there's always a time. I mean, you know, there's always a time when he can return, when he wants to return, when perhaps he wants to contribute something to our country without getting paid for it. Do something like he used to do, like he visit hospitals with children and very sick children, where he was just fantastic with them. I can't tell you this just by his presence used to bring smiles on the faces of all these very unwell kids, and yet he doesn't want to do that anymore. So he prefers the life in Los Angeles. Although I don't know what he does all day. I mean, it's he must be pretty bored a lot of the time. But, you know, one of the big things, the problem is that they've got two children that are a prince and a princess, and that they don't come and see their cousins. And I find that strange as well. So not only Harry gets short shrift from the king, I'm sure the children wouldn't. If they came, I'm sure he'd be grateful to see his grandchildren. But it hasn't happened, and that's a shame.
Anything is possible here, but I think it's how it looks, really, isn't it? He is our head of state. He is our monarch. He's the father of Harry. It would look nice if they met. He probably doesn't want it to be used as a PR opportunity, or maybe Harry's being the one being difficult. And it looks like it's Harry as being the one that is making it difficult, but it may be the other way around, or maybe they've just said, look, it's not going to work this time. But you would think Harry would be very, very keen to see his father. We don't know when he's going to be over here again. But, and, you know, maybe get a bit of praise from his father for, you know, for at least having done something successfully. Everything is done by appointment, which is why it's such a rigid, life. And the Queen used to say that the younger members of the royal family find that sort of rigid routine very, very difficult, because none of us live like that anymore. But it's a very old-fashioned way of life, except you don't have all the time in the world. I mean, I noticed that probably just over a year ago, Camilla was doing something at Clarence House, and I think she really wanted Charles to join in, but he literally walked into the room from a meeting he was having downstairs and stayed there for 5 minutes. And she said, "Oh, my husband's got to go now." So that gives you an idea that even for his wife, he can't always spare the time. And this wouldn't be just, hello, Dad, how are you? Or hello, Papa, how are you? Harry would want to say more because, we have some idea of what Harry's like. And he's not just going to, make it all lighthearted. He's going to see this as his opportunity to dive in. And I'm sure Charles doesn't want that.
William is pretty still angry about it. That's the saddest of all, because, those two were inseparable. I mean, they did everything together. They were just inseparable. After their mother died, they had each other. They comforted each other. They cried with each other. And then they did everything together. They skied together. They did everything together. They joined the Royal Air Force together. They did flight training together. And William, because of his rank in the royal family, couldn't go to war, but Harry did, and he was a great hero, and he did his service, and for that we mustn't forget. But you can soon forget the good things when you get nasty things said about the royal family, and I think that still probably hurts with a few of them. I think certainly with William, probably with Camilla, although Camilla's very forgiving. But and I think the king, look, I know, however busy you are, you've always got time for your children. And nothing, in my view, is more important than family. And perhaps Harry should remember that sometimes.
I think it's a great shame, but I do think they feel they don't want to play to the audience, which is us. Perhaps why should we let the audience know? Why should we let everyone know what our private lives are? We're just going to keep it very low key and quiet. There's always that niggling feeling that perhaps Harry has seen William without any of us knowing, but simply because of the situation that Kate's in. But we will never know unless they choose to tell us. And of course, Harry is pretty verbose about what he says. So I just wish I really knew, but none of us know. None of us know, and we won't be sure unless we see a photograph or somebody announces that they have met. If they don't see each other at all, and it looks like they won't, I don't. I think the relationship is gradually getting more and more distant. Because the longer you leave these things, the harder it is to actually mentally adjust to the fact that you want to see them, because there's always a reason not to. And it's easier not to. If you've had a up with someone, it's really much easier to leave it. And the longer it goes on, the more difficult it gets. And everyone said, of course, an illness can bring a family together, but this clearly hasn't happened yet.